Wow! I'm back, and today I'm going to talk about how I made Adventure Boy Jailbreak. If you don't know, this is the second game in the Swap Quest adventure game series, Adventure Boy, and I made this game on my own in about 3 months, with like 1 month of post-production. So this video is going to act kind of as a guide, mostly for myself, because when making games, it's often pretty easy for feature creep to come in and for the game project to just kind of blow up out of proportion, making it hard for you to stick to it and actually complete it. And that's actually exactly what happened with Adventure Boy 2. That was the first game that I ever worked on by myself. So I decided to just take a break and start a new project with a new mindset, which ended up being Adventure Boy Jailbreak, and I finished it very quickly. So I am planning on making another game in the series, like Adventure Boy 2, but that game is going to need a complete rehaul. So I think if I look at what I did right in Jailbreak, we can learn some lessons and use those to help finish the next one in good time too. So yeah, in this video I talk about planning, how I made the puzzles, I go over visuals, and I talk a little bit about the engine that I use as well. So let's go.
Planning!
So I started off setting up a setting and a theme and a story. So the story is very simple. I started off with this. They're on the roof. Their bottle rocket test explodes, and Benson falls off the roof, and then he gets stuck. So he was originally going to be like stuck in a tree, but then eventually I just had him fall onto the ground because I didn't want to like draw him in the tree. I was trying to save on having to draw too many sprites. I didn't want to do too many. So an important thing for me when I was deciding on the start of the game is I wanted to make sure that when you start off, you're in a little tutorial area where you can kind of learn how the game's mechanics work and how to play. So it's pretty important that you'll be in a place where you're stuck. So why would Benson be stuck in a small area? If it was a place that he could walk into, you know, he could easily just walk out. But I figured if he fell off the roof and then landed in a small area, then it would be kind of a challenge for him to get out. And ultimately, a lot of the story just stemmed from that idea too. The bottle rocket ended up being a key factor in the story. And at the start of the game, you do go through a little tutorial on your way trying to escape this little island here. So yeah, I set up this little environment first, and in the game series, you're always in a suburban setting, or you're always in like a normal kind of modern day town. And over here is the first drawing that I ever did of this this little environment. And this is a very early drawing, but it just about has every little building that appears in the game. And it has all the environments, all of the construction site, and it has the playground, but that turned into a tree house. Just about everything. The arcade and the claw machine is in there. But how did I get this? When I make games like this, I like it when you have to kind of unlock different parts of the environment. So that's why I have like a river splitting up the two sides of the town. And in the game, you do unlock the next side of the town by getting through the bridge. But then there's more to it. Like the river actually splits up the game in 4 ways. So if you look at the map where the actual game is in the end, first the river is blocking you off from getting into the east side of town, and then after that you have to cross the bridge to get to the west side of town. And then as a little surprise, it turns out you can walk in the river itself. So walking through the river, you'll find out, oh, there's another area. So yes, that's the layout of the town, but how did I get all of these different buildings?
Puzzle!
So first I came up with all the puzzles that I was going to include in the game, and to help me do that I came up with a little theme. The theme for this is the world of adults and children. So Benson is 15, so that puts him right in between adult world and children world, so he kind of acts as a link between those two worlds. And with that theme in mind, all of the puzzles, if you go through the game and play it again, you'll notice all of the puzzles kind of stick to the theme of adults have things that children want, and sometimes children have things that adults want too. and they both have things that the other can't get. So the milk bottle, for example, there's a baby doll. The baby doll is actually a CPR practice doll, but a little girl is playing with it as a toy, and the nurse needs it back. There's an adult in the game who's banned from the drugstore, but Benson can go and get cough syrup. There's this bootleg action figure, and a kid would think that a bootleg is stupid, but a lot of adults find the novelty in them. And then other items are just a means of getting your ingredients. So yeah, I thought that it would be fun if you had to collect a range of things which all lead up to a certain point. If you played Adventure Boy Cheapskate, that's another game where you have about 4 main items that you have to collect. Yeah, you have 4 people blocking the wharf, and you have to get the right item to get past all 4 of those people. And it's a bit hidden, but ultimately everything just leads up to getting those 4 items. And this game is the same, but it's less hidden. Right from the get-go it tells you you need to get ingredients for the cake. So I just thought it would be fun if the game revolved around collecting 4 items, which were all part of one larger item. Milk, eggs, sugar, and then you also have to get a file so that you can hide it in the cake and help your friend escape jail. Yeah, there's no flour in the cake, you might have noticed, but I just couldn't think of a puzzle which used flour, so screw it. So let's do the egg. So the egg, it's a bit simple, you know, like you could find an egg out in nature. I decided to put it up a tree. So how do you get the egg from the tree? So maybe you have to figure out a way to climb the tree. So I thought, yeah, make a ladder. There's wood, pieces of wood that you can use to make a ladder. Where do you get them from? I had already wanted to have a house somewhere in the game. You go into somebody's house. So I decided to put firewood in a fireplace. There's also a nail gun. So you use the nail gun and the wood to make a ladder. And then tracking back from there, that's hidden behind a bush. And just a sequence of different things. Often what I did was just get 2 swaps that I thought went together well. So like I thought it would be cool if a bush would be cut down with a razor, but that's not really related to this. Until you look at the map, you can lay out a way that will be related in the map. Like you can think of a way that like, okay, if you cut down the bush, what do you get from that? Well, I decided to put the construction site there, and that's where you get the nail gun. So in the sequence, you end up getting the razor first, and then you use that to cut the bush. And then you'll get the nail gun inside the construction site there. So I was able to put that at the end of this long sequence. Anyway, now that I had all of those items, I knew all of the items that would be in the game, then that helped me decide on environments that I would need, different buildings. So yeah, obviously if the main goal of the game is to bake a cake, it would make sense to put an actual bakery into the game too. So that's where you end up having your cake baked. There's a prescription, so there's going to be a doctor and a chemist. The burger place I put in there was originally just there because I wanted to have a little play place. I wanted to have a place that adults can't go, but kids can go. So, you know, a play place at McDonald's, it's not really appropriate for adults to go hang around in there, but Benson kind of could, so that's kind of his ability. He can go into places where only kids are allowed, usually. So that's why I had a burger place, but in the end I ended up getting rid of the playground there anyway, because I already had a playground, like the tree house kind of served that purpose already. But I did have an item which was the toothpick, and that goes pretty well in a burger place. Yeah, so every environment basically came after I decided puzzles, except maybe the arcade. I think I just put the arcade in there because I thought it would be fun. It was like a fun environment, and I want the game to look nice, so I thought an arcade would look good if I drew it well. And then some puzzles stemmed from that too. So this sequence, it starts with the tickets, paddle ball, token, all these things that you get in an arcade. In fact, all 4 of these items are from the arcade.
Visuals!
Yeah, and then I had this environment set up, and I had the puzzle set up, like in a little diagram, so I could kind of just picture how the game would work. So in my mind, I just imagined going through the environment, doing these puzzles in order, and this is how I looked at the environment, and I just pictured Benson like walking through, doing all these things. Kind of tried to make sure that it would all work out and make sense sequentially, just on paper. And then I was able to kind of refine it and made it look a little bit better, and I could make a little prototype where you can walk through. I'll put hitboxes everywhere you can walk through the little environment. And then after that, refined it even more. I made it a lot bigger, gave it this angle, and then I just kept doing refinements every once in a while whenever I wanted to make it look better. Every once in a while when I would have a showing, or I would demo it with somebody, I was like, oh, somebody's gonna play it next weekend. I should make sure that it looks nice for them. So I would like draw some art in. So if you look at this place, for example, like earlier it would just be gray box, and then at this point I had drawn in a bit of art, but then while demoing it I would realize I didn't really like how it looked, so I refined it even more and I drew a better version of it again. So then I went ahead and started drawing graphics. These are all a bit messy now, but I drew like thumbnails for all the different items. And then I drew all the environments, and I made like a little spreadsheet with all the environments that I have to draw, and I made sure that I drew them all in good time. Try to make sure that I was quick with everything. And for color palettes, sometimes I would just pick something from elsewhere. Like this is a screenshot from The Simpsons. It's from an Instagram page. It's called Scenic Springfield. So they'll just have environments and like backgrounds from The Simpsons, and I just grab some. Sometimes I use that to help me make a palette. And then yeah, often I would end up drawing them very quickly, and then I would have to split them up. So all of the places in the games, or all of the environments in the games, have layer ordering. So like you can walk behind this, you can walk in front of the bin or behind it depending on your order. And to do that I would have to split up the different pieces of the environment into separate sprites. So this will get rendered without the bin. And then I would have to export the bin separately so that it can be on a different layer. So yeah, when all of that is done, then it's a matter of layer ordering, which is kind of interesting in itself. Basically, the game is 2D, but 2D in Unity doesn't actually mean 2D. It's still running in a 3D engine. So everything actually exists in 3D space, but they have different Z depths. And you're looking at an orthographic camera, so like you can't actually see depth. Everything is just rendered on a flat plane, and you can't tell that things have depth unless you go into 3D mode like this. And then that's how layer ordering works too. Like if we want to look at Benson right now, his y-axis, which is going up, his vertical axis is lower than the chair, so that also changes his z-axis. And then when he walks up, his z-axis goes down, so that makes him go behind the chair. And then when he walks down, he's lower than the chair, he's higher than the chair on the z-axis. So that's the z value for the chair. It's minus 12.3. Benson's z value is, so you can see here, Benson's z value is changing as he walks up and down. So when you go down, then it goes down, and when you go up, then it goes up. And that's how it changes whether you're in front or behind something. And it pretty much works just about all the time. There's some times where it doesn't work very well, like these kind of buildings, because of the perspective. It's a bit weird. Like at this point, the Z value, you're in front of the store, but then when you go here, you want to be behind the store now. But if you were on the same Z when you came here, then you would be behind the store when standing here, and that wouldn't look right. So it has to have two separate pieces to it so that can work properly. And that's how I did that. I just split it up into two pieces. So this part of the wall is another piece, and it's higher up on the Z value, and I can get rid of it, which would look like that. So that's what it would look like if I didn't have two pieces. Now as for the engine and how the game works, I think this is kind of the fun stuff. So it's a simple character controller, and your character has a circular hitbox, so when the character walks around, you can see that circle always stays at his feet, so that stops him from walking through walls. That circle can't go through walls. So if you wanted to see him talk to somebody, there's someone there for him to talk to. And this all works with one script. There is a script called dialogue, which has every single piece of dialogue in the whole game. It has every character and all of their lines. And basically the way it works is it checks who you're talking to by getting their names. So this is just a switch statement, and it switches to a different dialogue depending on what item you have. So the chick leaning against the wall, her name is Lean Chick. And then if you look in the script, it looks for the case Lean Chick. So the case is whatever the name is of the person who you're talking to. And then it checks what item you have. It also checks if you've received certain items before, and she'll say different things depending on what part of the game you're up to. Okay, you might have noticed earlier that the whole environment is all in one scene. That allows me to do like instant transitions. And then the way that you move through them is with these doors that are made. So doors are little hitboxes with a pivot point. So we'll go with the bakery, for example. There's a door for the bakery. If you touch this, then it warps you to the outside door, which is here. And then if you touch that, it warps you to the inside door. So we can try it out. And sometimes they trigger music. So like when you go through a door, it just starts playing music. But other times, it'll prioritize different songs. And you might notice during the game that sometimes when you walk into the arcade, for example, it'll stop playing the arcade music, but other times it won't. So in this game, there's different priorities for different songs, and there's certain songs which I think are pretty catchy, so once they stop playing, I don't want to interrupt it and stop playing the next one. So it has priority. If that song is playing, then the arcade song won't stop playing. But if there's nothing playing, then the arcade song will play. And also in the bakery, that music plays very often because you go through the bakery all the time. So I set up a thing where it doesn't play twice in a row. It'll only play once, and then if a different song starts playing, then that allows the bakery music to stop playing again. In the first game, there was just wall-to-wall music, and it never stopped. But I thought it would be nice to give you like breathing space, and you would have time to listen to the environment and hear how the environment sounds. Like if you walk near the arcade, then you can hear the actual sound of the arcade music inside of the place. Another thing about layer ordering is that certain things you can't just choose layer ordering based on the y-axis. So this brick wall, for example, this will always be on a lower y-axis to you because of its pivot point. So what I decided to do instead of the normal way of layer ordering is that for this thing, it just has a sensor on either side. So I'm going to turn on a cheat where you can walk through walls, and it has a sensor on either side. So if you're standing on the left side, then it will turn on an overlay, and if you stand on the right side, then the overlay turns off. So you'll always be behind it if you're standing on the left, and then if you're on the right, vice versa. There's a part here in the game where you walk over a log, as you've seen, but later on you walk underneath the log too, through the river. But when you walk underneath it, that's not actually the same log. Because of the way layer ordering works, like your Z depth is tied to your Y value, I had to make a little cheat to make this work. So I used an overlay for that. So as a way to illustrate that, I made the overlay red, and the same with the comic book shop here, that's also a red overlay. Just for this video. So when you walk on the trigger, it turns on a little overlay, and then when you step on the off trigger, it turns off the two overlays too. So you can walk over it or under it depending on where you are. Now there's also a part in the game where you build a ladder and you can climb up this tree here, but when you do, a bird attacks you. So the way that the bird's animation works is actually really simple. It's using the Unity animator system. You can transition between different animators, different animations, and it's a nice smooth transition. So whenever you step on the trigger where the bird attacks you, the bird will just go from whatever animation it's currently in, transition to the next one, and it will fly at you. And if you change the slider, you can change how slowly it transitions from one animation to the other. So after production was complete, I posted the game on Steam, and Steam always gives you a really big publicity boost. Now, whether people are going to click on it or not is just a matter of whether it appeals to them or the quality that they're looking for. So I think for the next one, I'm going to try to get a budget for it, so I can fund it so that I can work on it full time. And if I do that, along with all the lessons that I learned with this production, I'll be able to complete it in good time, and I'll end up with an actual good product, so that when people see it with that publicity boost on Steam, they'll actually want to click on it and buy it. So thank you to anybody who supported me by buying the game on Steam. In the future sometime, I will be posting Adventure Boy Jailbreak for free on Newgrounds and Congregate too. So it's going to be a long time before that, but it's going to be just a way of getting the word out there to try to help promote the next one in the series. So thank you again.